On this video, we're going to be explaining the odd ones. Now, questions 1 and 3 are pretty simple. So they're asking, here's your inequality. They're asking which of these coordinates is part of the solution set. So if you wanted to check and see if this was a solution, all you have to do is plug in the 4 into x and plug in the 3 into y. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15, and 15 is greater than or equal to 6. So this one's a yes. You could circle it if you'd like. That's part of your answer. Does that mean that that's the only answer? No, you have to go check all the coordinates, because there's technically an infinite amount of answers when you look at the graph of it. So when we test -2 for x, that would be 3 times -2, that's -6. And then the plus 4 right there, so -6 plus 4, that's -2. And -2 is definitely not greater than or equal to 6. So that's not true, so this coordinate does not work as an answer. Okay? If you were to plug in -5 for x and -3 for y, you'd get -15 plus -3, that's -18. -18 is not greater than a positive number, so that's also false. And the last one, 3 for x and -3 for y. So 3 times 3 is 9, minus 3, 9 minus 3 is 6, and 6 is not greater than, but it is equal to 6. So it does satisfy this inequality. So this does work. So if you check the back of your worksheet, you should see those two coordinates as being the answers to number 1, 4, 3, and 3, -3. Does that make sense? All right. So instead of me wasting more time on number 3, you guys could just practice that and check your answer on the back. Let me jump to number 5. Right here they want us to graph this inequality. By the way, tomorrow's little mini quiz, it's a half sheet of paper and it's going to have 4 of these. Maybe 2 from here, 2 from yesterday's worksheet. This question might be on it itself. Now you want to first rewrite it in slope-intercept form. So you want to get y by itself. You'd have to get rid of the 2x first. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other. And of course, you cannot subtract 8, take away 2y. So you're just going to rewrite it. Let's rewrite the whole thing. So far, I have -2y is greater than or equal to, and let's rewrite it with the -2x first and the plus 8, the positive 8 second. I need to now get y by itself, so I would have to divide, because you really have multiplication of -2 right there in front of the y. You'd have to divide by -2, divide by -2, divide by -2, divide everything by -2. Then you'd have your final slope-intercept form inequality. That would be y. Now, because I divided by a negative, what do I do with that inequality?
Change it.
Change it. And then you have -2 divided by -2. That is positive 1. And of course, there's an x right there. Again, I got the -2 and divided it by -2, and that's how I got the positive 1 right there. And then at the very end, I have positive 8 divided by -2. That is -4. And now we have our slope-intercept form inequality. And like I have been on the past videos, our m is in blue and our b is in red. Now, when you're talking about m, you want it in the form of a fraction, rise over run. So you'd put that 1 over a 1. That way it'll rise 1, run 1. And the way to graph this thing would be to go to the b value, the -4, which is down here. You put a dot at -4 at the y-intercept value. And you're going to rise and run according to your slope. Here's your slope, 1 over 1. So you're going to rise 1 and run 1. And you're going to put a dot right here. And you continue to rise 1 and run 1. Continue to rise 1 and run 1. Use that pattern to get from one side of the graph to the other side. And then use the pattern backwards. Instead of rising 1 and running 1, go backwards 1, down 1, backwards 1, down 1. That way you could extend it in the other direction. And then now you need to decide if this is going to be a solid line or a dotted line. What do you guys say?
Solid.
Solid, that's right. If it has a solid line underneath, it will be solid. If it does not have a solid line underneath, then it's not going to be solid. And our final touch to graphing inequalities is we need to decide where the answers are at. They're on one side of the line or the other. They're not on both. So your answers are either going to be up here or down here. Okay. So what we're going to do is test a value. What's the easiest coordinate to test? 0, 0. So if you test 0, 0, and you could go with the original inequality, or you could go to your newly modified slope-intercept form inequality. What do you guys want to do? The original or the y equals mx plus b1?
Trevor's easier.
They're both easy.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go with the modified one, with the y is less than or equal to x minus 4. If I plug in a 0 right there where the x is at, and then I plug in a 0 right there where the y is at, it's going to say 0 is less than or equal to 0 minus 4. So let me write that. 0 is less than or equal to negative 4. What do you guys say about that? Is 0 less than or equal to negative 4? No, that's false. 0 is greater than any negative number. So we know that the 0, 0 point is not an answer. So that must mean that our answers are where? On the other side, on the bottom. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next odd one, because I already did a video on the even ones, so let's go to the odd one. Number 7. I want to get y by itself. What do? Add the 5. Thank you. And then we'll have y is less than or equal to the x. You're just going to rewrite it. And then negative 9 plus 5, that is negative 4. And the value in front of x is what? 1. And I'm going to put it 1 over 1 because that's our slope. Pay attention. So we have y is less than or equal to 1 over 1x minus 4. That's now in slope-intercept form. We can now graph this thing. We go to the y value of negative 4 right here. And from that point, we're going to rise and run according to our slope. Rise 1, run 1. If it would have been a negative 1 over 1, it'd be going down 1 over 1. But it's positive, the slope, so you're going to go up 1 over 1. So you go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and you continue all the way till you extend it from one side to the other. And you could go backwards with that pattern to get it to the other side. Now this one, again, is a solid line because it has a solid line underneath it. So I'm going to do a solid line. If it didn't have a solid line underneath it, then it would not be a solid line. It'd be a dotted line. And our final finishing touch, we need to decide which side to shade. So what do you think? How do I shade?
0, 0.
Test 0, 0. And if I test 0, 0, on the last one we did it with the y equals mx plus b. Let's go with the original this time. If I put a 0 in place of the y and x, it'll say 0 minus 5. That's just negative 5. And over here, 0 minus 9 is just negative 9. Is negative 5 less than or equal to negative 9? Let's write that. Is negative 5 less than or equal to negative 9? No, negative 5 is closer to the positive values, so that would be greater than. So this is false. So you'd have to shade in the other side, not the 0, 0 side. So you have to shade in down here. Make sense? Okay, if you're struggling with that, I want to show you a shortcut. Even if you're not struggling, you're going to love this shortcut. Okay, let me ask you this, guys. What does this say right here? Y. It says Y. Now, where's Y at on the XY plane? It's this up and down line, right? Okay. Now, this says Y, and then what does this say?
Is less than or equal to.
Less than or equal to. Now, let's think about the word less than. Does that mean below? Or does that mean above?
Below.
It means below. So if you understand when y is by itself, that y has to be below, then your answers have to be below your graph. Does that make sense? Let's go back to the number 5 that we just did. This one, once you get it in slope-intercept form, once it's y by itself, not right here or up here, but once y is by itself, you could think, okay, y is, it's going up and down. Y has to be below the line. So below is going to be shading underneath. If it would have been a greater than or equal to, it would have been shaded in on top. Now the correct way, the best way, the way that you truly understand is that you test the point, and the easiest point to test is 0, 0. But here's an awesome shortcut. If y is by itself, and that says less than, then it's going to be below the line. If it says greater than, it's going to be shaded above the line. Pretty easy, right? Okay, let's jump to our next odd question, number 9. A lot of people hate number 9 because of the fractions. However, it's pretty easy to do. You want to get in slope-intercept form? Let's get y by itself. What do I have to get rid of? 1/2. So let's subtract 1/2. 1/2 take away 1/2 is nothing, right? So I will have y all by itself. You don't change the inequality. Now when I subtract 1/2 on the other side, obviously I'm going to subtract it with the 7/2. So what is 7/2 take away 1/2? 6 halves.
Yeah.
But the thing is this, what is 6 halves?
6.5.
No, 6 halves is 3, because 6 divided by 2 is 3, right? So the negative 2x comes down, and the 7/2 take away 1/2. Like you guys said, that's 6 halves, but that'll actually be 3. So let me erase 6 divided by 2 is really 3. So let me just put a plus 3 right there. And I hope everybody understands that. The slope is what? In this slope-intercept form inequality, what's the slope?
The slope is
What's the slope?
negative 2 over 1.
Negative 2 over 1. So let's go to our b value of 3. 1, 2, 3. Put a dot right there at 3. And from that point, are we going to go up or are we going down?
Going down.
How many units?
2.
How many do I run after going down 2? 1 over to the right always. So let's put that dot right there. Now, of course, that line is not long enough. Let me continue with that pattern of down 2 over 1 to get to the next point, and then down 2 over 1 to get to the next point, and so on and so on. Let me use that pattern backwards to get up there to the final dot on the left side, upper left side. Okay, now, is this going to be a solid line or a dotted line?
Dotted.
It's going to be dotted. Okay, so let's put some dots between the dots. If on tomorrow's quiz you accidentally put a solid line, you're going to miss some points. All right? Now, on top of that, I need to shade either the bottom part of this dotted line or the above part of this dotted line. What do you guys say?
Above.
Above. How do you know that? It's greater. Okay? So you're not going to be shading down here. You're going to be shading up here. So above means, think about any y value on this line. Like if you go to this y value and anything greater than negative 1 on the y is going to be up here. So the greater than, the shortcut tells you that you have to shade in everything up here. So that's what I'm going to do. That means that all the answers that work are on that blue shaded area. None of the other coordinates on the other side are going to work. So if you would have done it the way you're supposed to by testing 0, 0, it would not have worked. And we could even show that to you right here. If I plug in a 0 for y and a 0 for x, you're going to have 0 is greater than 0 plus 3. 0 is greater than 3. That's false. So this definitely does not work, which means that the other side does work. But the shortcut is, if it's a greater than, you're going to be shading in above the line. If it's a less than, you're going to be shading below the line. Pretty easy to do. Let's jump to the final part of this worksheet. By the way, these are extra questions that were not on the original worksheet. I just added them. So, as a matter of fact, I already explained this on the other video. So, if you need to watch that explanation, please watch the other video. I might as well explain some of these on the recording on this video here. So, like number 15, I need two things to write this equation. What do I need? M and B. What is the M? Well, here's a nice point, but you got to find another nice point. Is this a nice point?
No.
Is that a nice point?
No. Oh, yeah.
Actually, that's a nice one, right? Now, you don't have to use this one. You could use any other nice point, like this is a nice point, that's a nice point, right? So you could find some nice points and use any of those points that you want. So yes, your slope from one point to another is up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, or over here, up 2 over 1. So the slope really is positive 2 over 1. Now the b value, where does it cross the y-axis? Crosses at 2. So you really have y. I'm going to leave a blank spot right here because normally I'll put equal, but I'm going to leave a blank spot right now. 2x and then plus b plus 2. Now the question is, we need an inequality here, not an equal sign. So am I going to put a greater than symbol or a less than symbol?
Greater. Or less than. Wait, no, greater than. Or less. Yeah.
Okay, based on the shortcut that I showed you, if you pick any point on this line, so like let's pick this point right here. Is the shading above that dot or is it below that dot? It's below. Is the shading above that dot or below that dot? It's below. So what does that mean, guys? If the whole graph is below, if the shading is below, less than, right? So it is less than. Let's put a less than right there. Might as well erase. Well, I can't erase. But anyway, do I put an or equal to also right here? No, I don't. Because it's not a solid line, it's a dotted line. So that's your answer for number 15. Number 14, some people might get confused. What's my slope? My slope is 0. Slope of 0 is a totally flat line. 3 over 1?
Negative 3 over 1.
Negative 3 over 1. Again, pick two nice points. Here's a nice point. There's a nice point. Let's see, right here's a nice point. Now, obviously, right here is not a nice point. It's not at a nice coordinate. Right here, it isn't either. But right here, it's at a nice coordinate. It's a coordinate 1, negative 3. So you want nice coordinates. And then you could compare two nice coordinates and say, okay, I'm going down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. So my slope really is negative 3 over 1. My b value in this case, where's it across the y-axis? 0. So my slope-intercept form equation, if it were an equation, it'd be y equals, but I don't really have an equals. It's going to be an inequality. The slope, negative 3 over 1 with an x, and then plus 0. But it's not an equal sign. It's an area. So what do you think? I'm shading right here. So does that mean that this is going to be a greater than symbol or a less than symbol? You guys are saying less, like you're asking me.
It is less.
It is less, right? If you pick any point on this line, like let's say I pick this one, is the shading above, directly above that dot, or below that dot? It's below. Right here, directly above or directly below? The shading's below. So if the whole shading is below, that means it's less than. Now, the question is that just a regular less than, or is it a less than or equal to?
Less than or equal to.
Less than or equal to. Why is it or equal to?
Solid line.
It's a solid line, that's right. Okay. 13. This one's so easy, people get confused also. Whenever you have a vertical line or a horizontal line, it's special cases, right? It's so easy, you just need to know it. When you have a vertical line, you're either going to have x equals a number, and if it's a horizontal line, it's going to be y equals a number, right? So right here, what's our equation going to be? Okay, if you want to go through the motion and say, okay, what's my slope? My slope is undefined. How about my b value? It doesn't exist. Doesn't
Y equals
exist. I'm a math teacher. No I. There is no b value. It does not cross the y-axis. No, the thing is this. You need to write an equation, and this is just information. So this information is pointless because you need to write the equation of a vertical line that's shaded on this side. So what equation would give you a vertical line?
X.
X equals a value, right? So if you had x equals 2, you'd do a vertical line right at the x value of 2. If you had x equals 5, you'd do a vertical line at the x value of 5.
X equals negative 1.5.
Exactly. So x equals negative 1.5. Now, if it were an equal sign, then it would just give me the line, but I have shading. So it's either less than or greater than. So right here, it's not about above or below because there's not even a y value involved. Right here, it's about your x values. So in terms of x's this time, is less than shaded or is greater than shaded? Greater than is shaded. So you're going to put a greater than symbol right there. And that would be the inequality that represents that shaded part of the graph. All right, guys, I'm done. But you guys have to do the rest of this worksheet. Quiz tomorrow, I'm selecting some of these.